And welcome into Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. We're calling this one a captain's brew. I don't even know if it makes sense, but I think it does because we're talking, Razor, to two former Boston Bruins captains and one current captain. I think you can figure out who that's going to be. And we look forward to this as the Boston Bruins prepare for their centennial celebration, the finale of the 100-year celebration on Sunday against the Montreal Canadiens. Before we get to our guest, let's first recognize the sponsors that help make this possible. Fazenda Coffee is our lead sponsor in pod, and we can't thank them enough. Go to fazendacoffee.com/morningbrew. Check out everything Fazenda Coffee has, including the Morning Brew blend and the hats and many other types of coffee. fazendacoffee.com, the place to go. We can't thank them enough. Also, Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor, presented by Graciano Construction. Go to gracianoconstruction.com to discuss whatever home renovations you're looking for. They will help refresh and revitalize your space. Baydog, Canine Adventure Gear, baydog.com, the place to go, baydog.com. Sparks, and the best at-home Sparks hockey sharpener you can buy, sparkshockey.com, the number one skate sharpener in hockey, sparkshockey.com. RTN Realty, looking to buy, sell, or lease a new place in Mass, Rhode Island, or New Hampshire? Check out rtnrealty.com and check out Chris Gentile and his staff. And lastly, Apex Entertainment, apexentertainment.com, 100,000 square feet of pure fun in Marlborough, apexentertainment.com. All right, Razor, can't thank our sponsors enough. This show is special. We wanted to do something different leading up to this. The Bruins organization recognizing all their players from in the year past, but this Sunday against Montreal, they're going to have some captains come out there. And we thought it would be a lot of fun to catch up with Ray Bourque, Patrice Bergeron, and Brad Marchand, guys that we were able to get and just to talk to them about being a captain and being involved with the Bruins on and off the ice. And because the game's against Montreal, against playing the Montreal Canadiens, you are part of this unique, special fraternity that is the Boston Bruins. When you think of the Boston Bruins and captains, what comes to your mind?
Well, what comes to mind is, and we hear, I think we're going to hear it a lot through these interviews, is culture and how they're each connected through the previous person. Brad's going to talk about Patrice. Patrice is going to talk about Zdeno. Zdeno's going to talk about Ray. Ray's going to talk about Taz and Bobby. And it's that's the little fraternity inside the big fraternity. And they all take immense pride in having Bruins way, having a Bruins culture, and they all feel like they've got a little piece of it, and they all stay very connected to continue that tradition through these 100 years.
Well, it's amazing what all three of these players have done. And I think the perfect way we agree to start this is by sitting down with the guy who did it longer than anybody, 15 years wearing the C on his sweater for the Boston Bruins, Hall of Famer, Ray Bourque. And we are excited to start with this guy, as we said in our introduction, Ray Bourque, 15 years as captain of the Boston Bruins. Longer than that player, too, but 15 years wearing the C on the Spoke B sweater, Ray. Phenomenal to have you join us here as we get set for this special Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor Centennial Show edition. We're calling it the Captain Show, as we're having you and Patrice and Brad, and it's just going to be a ton of fun to catch up with all of you. But before we get to that, Razor, and for the first time in the history of Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor, if you're watching our version on YouTube, we have a legit background behind us, not just our offices. Ray Bourque has brought the outdoor, the Florida life to the show. Raymond, thank you. You're at the golf course, and no better place to sit and talk with you.
Yeah, we got a pretty good setup here in Florida, and good to be on your show. It took a while, guys. I was wondering if you'd ever ask, so...
We saved the big show for you, buddy. We saved the big show for you. This is what's called an evergreen. We're going to run this for a long time. And if some of you don't know, which I can't imagine you don't, Ray is also an owner of Tresca, one of the top restaurants on the North End. And Ray, we can't thank you enough. You and Chef Rich have been outstanding to us a few playoff seasons. We're very honored to have you be partners with us, sponsor us for those runs. Unfortunately, we thought they'd be longer runs. We thought they would go further. Both of
No,
them.
we appreciate the support too.
It's
You know,
been
you
great.
guys always pop in and come in every once in a while. Same with Razor and his family, and a few of the Bruins. One of our best customers. Is our goalie, Sway. So he picks up every night before a game. He picks up his chicken parm with penne alla vodka and rollerblades, and he's right there in the North End, or he was. I think he moved now. So, no, place is doing great, and we got a great team there. Rich heads the way with his cooking and just going around making people feel very special.
Well, we love it, and we're hoping to have a Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor holiday party there. It'll be 3 of us or 5 of us, but we are looking forward to it.
Just let me know.
Let's get you started here. Let's get going in this. Obviously, a big weekend coming up. We are sitting down and doing this episode, folks, a couple of days before the centennial, the Bruins 100 years, celebrating 100 years. Sunday, December 1st is the game. A lot of Bruins coming back. Just going to be a ton of fun. Very appropriate that they're playing Montreal. But I guess we'll just start with this in your words and your feeling. What does it mean for you to be obviously a big part of it, just to know that you're going to be there when the Bruins celebrate 100 years of NHL hockey?
I think it's just an amazing feat, you know, being around for that long and being part of it for almost 21 years. And there's no better place to play. You know, I grew up in Montreal and a big hockey fan and knew the rivalry that Montreal and Boston had. And to end up on the other side of it was a lot of fun and, you know, challenging sometimes going home in the summers, but just being part of something like that. There's not many businesses or teams that could say that they've been around that long, and the history that comes with that, and the tradition and expectations, and having it in a city like Boston is just amazing. And I think the Bruins did an amazing job last year with the nights that they had. We were part. I think I was part of 2 or 3 of them last year, and being part of this last one that was their first game played ever, December 1st, 100 years ago, will be a lot of fun to be part of.
Ray, can you tell us about the day you were named captain? Who told you, what the process was like, and your emotions that day?
I was summering in Montreal, and I remember John Blum and his wife were visiting, and I got the call and they asked if I wanted to be, and that was taken over from Kara O'Reilly, and um, it was I wasn't convinced that, you know, I was ready or the right guy for it at that time. I was 25, I think, or 26 years old, or turning 26, maybe 5 or 6 years in, and Rick Middleton was still on the team. So I thought Rick was going to be the next guy in line, and you know, just seniority and you know, his leadership and who Rick was for the team. And so I it was scary. It was really, really scary. And I remember talking to John Blum that weekend, and he's trying to convince me that, you know, you should do this. This is your job, and you're the next guy, and whatever. And I really didn't feel comfortable at that point in time. You know, leading the way for me, it was so easy just jumping on the ice and leading by example and doing my job. But I've always kind of grew up as a very shy kid that didn't say all that much. And, you know, Peter McNabb for the longest time would tell people that I didn't speak English when I got to Boston. I spoke perfect English. I just didn't speak. So that layer and that next step for me was a scary one. So I said this to Harry, and then Harry kind of, you know, came up with, you know, I don't think it was the same day, but just not long after that, he says, "What about if you just share it with Rick Middleton and be co-captains, where somebody wears a C on the road and the other guy wears it at home, and you switch halfway through the year and all that stuff?" And that was a great way for me to really try to make that transition into that next step of leadership. And doing it with Rick for, I think it was a couple of years, really allowed me to kind of grow into that captaincy.
Ray,
But it was scary. Because when things are going great and you're rolling, it's easy. There's nothing to do. it's when the crap hits the fan and you're on a really bad run and you're trying to figure things out, and you know how do you solve the problems that are going on among your team. So that those times are difficult times for a captain.
Ray, had you been a captain during your junior time? Well, Brad Marchand never been a captain before. Now he's the captain of the Bruins. Had you had that experience? And part two of the question is, and there's nothing like, I've said this to Razor before. There's nothing like the C on a hockey sweater. Like it's cool. It's awesome. It's so appropriate. Other sports have stolen it from us and everything, but it's the best. Do you remember the first time you saw it, that first game on you, and the emotions that you had? And going into that game as the captain, seeing it on your sweater?
Yeah, my second year of mosquito hockey, I was named captain, and every time it was my second year on a team, because you played 2 years with mosquito, then it was Pee Wee, Bantam, and midget. I always had a letter on me. It was a captain or assistant captain, and in junior I was captain for my last 2 years of junior hockey, and that was played in Verdun. So, yeah, I've always had a letter on my right over my heart there.
And do you remember your first Bruins game wearing the C? Do you remember putting that jersey on? And you talked about you were scared when you got named captain. How did you feel that? Do you remember how you felt going out for that first time as the captain?
You know what? To be honest, I don't. I just remember that the season kind of, wearing it on the road or at home, and just sharing it with Rick, um, and feeling, really comfortable doing it with Rick. I think compared to, when you name a young guy, sometimes maybe before it's time, the growing pains could be pretty painful. But I just remember having a great experience, right off the bat, wearing it. But I don't specifically wear. I don't remember putting a jersey on for the first time with the C. I could lie and say I do, but I don't. But there's a lot of things. It's been 23 years since I retired, and it's been 45 since I got to Boston. There's a lot of things I forget.
More than most people know in general. The responsibility of it with the Boston Bruins. So I was at camp with you in 98 and 99. And then making the team full time in 01 and 02. And then having you around after the lockout in 05. And I guess my question is the responsibility of being a captain, but I feel like you've been a captain for the last few guys as well, whether it's Patrice and Zdeno and now Brad. I think our generation look at you as the face, and just kind of lean into that and what that responsibility was like for you through your 15 years and now post career as well.
Well, what comes with that, I got great relationships with Z and Patrice and Brad, and I've always thought that was very important to have, and to be there with, just to support them, and to, give them a little text every once in a while on some of the good stuff that's going on for them. And I'm a big fan. I bleed black and gold, and that is always the case. But for me, it was very easy to lead by example and doing the right thing on the ice, off the ice, and knowing the expectations that came with what being a Boston Bruin was and being captain. And I really tried to make everybody feel comfortable from day one when they stepped into that dressing room. I'd be the first guy welcoming somebody that got called up, or a young draft pick, or a rookie making the team, and really making them know that I'm here for them. My wife and I are here for them, for their family, for their wives, their girlfriends, and whatever they needed. And I just remember Chief had just retired, when I came in, and Cash was our captain, but Chief was the guy, that was always offering to help or to be there or any kind of advice, because Chief was so connected. on everything. That if you needed anything, Chief would be there to tell you. And then Cash was the same way, and Taz, and so you learn from these guys, and you just try to pass that on. But you know that the influence of making people feel comfortable and not being bigger than any other player on that team, and knowing the expectations that comes with it, but using that as a positive to show the way and everybody, when I talk about Z, or you talk about the Bruins and Patrice and then Brad, the biggest name that the biggest thing that's always said about the Bruins is culture, and the culture starts with those guys doing the right things, saying the right things, doing it the right way, and treating people with respect in the game and all that stuff. So I learned from the best, and we just pass that on, and the torch just keeps being passed down, and that's what makes the Bruins and a very special organization, and being around for 100 years and having the success that they've had, just because of all those players that have come before us and has paved the way for us to do special things and to pass it on. Man,
Ray,
it's hot in Florida, guys. Jeez, it's like I'm like on the ice. I need a new pair of gloves. Rotating 4 pair of gloves a game.
Well, as 38 minutes on the ice.
Oh, it's a little bit nicer and a little bit warmer in Florida today than it is here as Razor and I sit and record this episode, this interview with you. Another thing that's made the Bruins special has been their layers of leadership, meaning the amount of leaders they've had on teams. And you played here for so long, it's hard to get to everybody. But were there a couple of guys that were part of your group of leaders, like, I don't say under you, but whether they're assistants or not, that you really you think about and you're like, that player helped me so much they took care of the room in this way, or they did that, and they were so instrumental to your leadership throughout your time as captain?
Yeah, it's not the captain's not the captain kind of brings things together, but you have your team, you have your team that you lean on, your core guys of your team that I always kept in communication with, and whenever there was something going on, we'd always gather up and talk about a solution, and you listen to different voices, and those guys were leaders in their own way. Brad Park, when I came in, took me under his wing and did amazing things with me before or after practice. I mean, I was like a sponge, and Brad could talk, man. He'd talk hockey, and I was all in listening, and then we'd bring it onto the ice sometimes before practice. He wanted to work with me on certain things and all that stuff. And and Taz, watching Terry Riley and listening to him. I've never seen a guy work as hard as Terry Riley or as tough as Terry Riley, and I think he's the ultimate Bruin. I've always said, if you look up what a Bruin is in a dictionary, Terry Riley's picture should be there. And when you're surrounded by guys like that, and even when I was captain with Nifty and afterwards, we had a core of guys that like Keith Crowder, Steve Casper, Cam, Don Sweeney, Rob DeMaio. I had Dave Poulin was amazing to be around. Gary Galley, Reggie Lemlin, and we were having success. Moger, Andy Moog, and just it's like when you look at the Bruins, okay, you had Patrice, you had Z, you have Marshy, but then you had Zeidenberg, you had that core defense back when they won the cup. Those guys, you could just see their character guys, and when you put a group like that together, it makes it very special, a lot of fun to work with, and when your best when your best players are your best people and how they play and how they conduct themselves and how they treat people, that's what creates that chemistry and that culture that is so important and sometimes so hard to find or to figure out. And why do some teams have it and some teams don't? It's weird, but it's the people you have on your team that creates that kind of atmosphere, and it's very special and important to have.
Ray, another special part of the Boston Bruins is the rivalry with the Canadiens. They're synonymous, and they go decades back. Everyone has a moment. Pretty sure your moment. I know we've talked a lot about it. I feel like I ask you these questions every time I see you. This is like normal, all the questions I ask you all the time. But what's your most special moment beating the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, it was 87. Finally, like I grew up in Montreal and I go back every summer, and it seems like we played on every playoff, and I'd have to hear about it all summer long. And, 87, and it had been almost 45 years, I think, that the Bruins had not won a playoff series against Canadians. And doing an 87 was so nice to go back home in the summers. That's what we would do back at that time before the kids got, they were really, really young. So we'd go back and see our families all summer long. And it was the quietest summer I've ever had. I had to bring things up, and it was fun to be able to do what I had done to me for my first 6 or 7 years playing in the NHL and having to meet and go home as a loser, more or less, I guess. But it was great, and I just remember Harry after the game as well saying, this is like winning the Stanley Cup. He actually said that, and I was like, wow. And flying back to Boston and having had security, like the state police had to form a line for us to walk through. There's so many fans that went to the airport, and I think it was the second round of the playoffs. But that really propelled our team to go on for the next, I think our run was probably 4, 5, 6 years where we got to two finals and a lot of semifinals and good runs. That was so much fun to go through with that group. But that's my fondest there, and obviously being from Montreal. I remember my first exhibition game in the Forum, and Guy Lafleur and my idols who I looked up to as a kid was Guy Lapointe, Larry Robinson, and Serge Savard, the big three, and have an opportunity to play, against them in the Forum with my family and my friends there. And it really took me a little while to kind of really settle down and not get too pumped up or too nervous or excited about playing against them because I was from there. And, it took a couple of years to just kind of settle down for those games for me.
How you talked about, you had a quiet summer, the summer after you won, but did you take a lot of crap? Like when you would go home, when people give it to you and everything, were they
Yeah,
ruthless?
like
I mean,
what
thankfully you
happened?
didn't have
Oh,
social
well,
media.
yeah, thank God, man. But well, what happened again? What happened again? It's like, oh, we beat you guys again. And all of it was all in good fun for the most part. But all depends who it came from, and it was fun to give it back to some of those guys that you knew really meant it.
What was it about the Canadians and the way they played at that time? What, you were on the ice against them. What made them so freaking tough to play against? What did they do so well from your perspective?
Everything. They were very responsible. They were always good defensively. The best defensive coach I've ever played for was Pat Burns, and he said he went to the University of Hockey, coaching in Montreal. I've never seen a guy so technical defensively than Pat, and how he ran practices and how he made everybody aware and really taught everybody how to play not only their wing position, but being the first guy back. He used to have one drill that was the top of the circles. We'd line one big line there, and you couldn't go outside the top of the circles. And every forward would have to rotate with two defensemen and being the first guy back and how to communicate and how to work. And just that drill alone allowed us to spend so much less time in our zone. And I just thought it was a tremendous drill and one that I had never experienced before. And I think, Montreal was always a team that was very responsible, very well coached, had amazing goaltending and could just light it up. So they were just strong in all areas and really, and expectations that are put on an organization like Montreal and Boston to be good and to be, a good team all the time and a tough team to play against. And I remember growing up watching Boston or Philly come into Montreal, and they thought they could intimidate them, and it would never happen, because those guys would take care of things when it had to be taken care of. And, it doesn't hurt when you have Ken Dryden and Patrick Waugh and all these amazing goalies that played for them. Way back in the day, they were so, it was unfair by how they went about the draft and the players they could get out of the Quebec League and all that kind of stuff. And, their Nova Scotia could have beat probably some NHL teams back in the day, and the 80s and in the 70s and late 60s. So they were just, they're just an amazing team. And you always knew that, you're in for a very tough game. And you had to be ready for it. And being from there, it was always a thrill to play, in Boston or in Montreal against those guys.
Whether it was somewhat personal or just someone that was really difficult to play against, what Canadian did you dislike the most?
Well, I'll tell this story. Like everybody hated Claude Lemieux, and he was very easy to hate, and I hated him. And so we go to Rendezvous in '87, and the night before we get in, and the players, we have meetings, and we're talking, just a whole bunch of meetings and a team meal. And all the wives, they all go out together. So we're back in our rooms around 10:30, and my wife comes in around 1 o'clock in the morning feeling really good, and she says, "Oh my God, I met the nicest girl, and it was like amazing, and we gotta hook up with them." And I'm like, "Who?" She, Claude Lemieux. I'm like, that cannot happen. That is not happening. No, but Ray, I'm telling you, she's so nice. Yeah, but he's not. So it's not happening. So the next day I go to practice, and Claude and I look at each other. We go, "Oh my God, really?" Yeah. I said, "Yeah, really." So I go home that summer, and we meet and we go out for dinner, and we have an amazing, great time, and kind of see each other a few times after that, play a little golf together. And so I have my golf tournament in Montreal, and I have Glenn Wesley, Gary Galley, I think, or Bob Sweeney, Gordy Kluzak, Don Sweeney. They all come to my tournament, and they're like, "Are you friggin' kidding me? What is he doing here?" Right? So then every time we'd play them, it'd be like, "Oh, you're playing against your buddy tonight? You're gonna take it easy on him?" And he was a friggin' horse, and he was just like, and I, regardless of the relationship I had with opponents or whatever, I never said a word during the game to them, never looked at him, and it was like all business all the time and all that stuff. But the guys would bust my balls like all the time. So that was he was one that was very easy to hate till I got to know him. But on the ice, he was easy to hate because he he'd be so he was good, he was big, he was strong, and then he'd turtle, or he'd do this, or he'd do that, and you're like, what the hell, Claude? Right? But a great player and a winner, right? And when he got to Montreal, him and Patrick, they won that year as rookies, and then he goes on, wins a cup in New Jersey and Colorado, and a great player. But he was one that was very and then the other guys for me, Mike Keane and Guy Carbonneau. Not that it wasn't so much hate, but it was a very frustrating to play against. I never had, I mean, they had more saves than goalies some nights, and how they would block shots. And this is, not everybody was blocking shots back then, but those two guys killing penalties and trying to get pucks in the net were really frustrating and tough to play against. And so those guys for me stand out. And Patrick, obviously,
Yeah, what was Patrick like to play against? Was he vocal? Was he not? I mean, he had a lot of movement to his game, but he was incredibly athletic and everything. What was that like?
He was he could, very, very feisty. You know,
Yeah.
he could get emotional and really kind of lose it out there sometimes. And you know, I don't think it was a bad thing if you had him do that, just to you know, kind of get him off his game if you could or not. But he was, you know, then I got to play with him. He's another guy too that you know we played golf at the same golf course in Montreal, Rosemary Country Club, and we hang out in the summer and then we play against each other. We always joke to play together someday. And he said, "Yeah, you have to come to Montreal." And I said, "No, let's get you to Boston." And we end up in Colorado together. But it was an amazing 15 months to play with him. Man, I would have liked to play with him in Boston for a few years because the competitor there he was and how he practiced, how he went about his business. You know why he was so good. He wanted to stop every shot, and mostly he did. You know, he in practice you could hardly score on him, and you have to go shoot an embouchure on the other side to try to work on your confidence. And then Larry, you know, then playing, you know, getting to play with Larry, Larry and Guy Lafleur in Canada Cups was amazing. Getting to know, you know, like a guy like Bob Gainey as well, playing with some of those great players. You know, looking up as a kid, you kind of looking up at them and being a big fan and having the opportunity to play with them in '81 was an amazing experience. Even though we got blown out in that last game uh, against the Russians, but yeah, it was good. It was fun. A good rivalry, and a lot of respect on both sides there.
Growing up such a Montreal fan, though, did I know you bleed black and gold now? I get all that, but was it hard to I mean, were you able to dislike them right away, or did it build? Did it take time because you were such a fan growing up of them?
No, I learned pretty quick that you know they had just come off that semifinal loss in the seventh game in overtime. You know, and the tying goal with the too many men on the ice and all that stuff. They were up 3-1 in the third period, and the Memorial Cup was played in Verdun that night. The finals was against Peterborough against Brandon Wheat Kings, and Keith Crowder was on one team, and Brian McCrimmon was in the other team. I ended up being drafted that year by the Bruins, and I was taking the bus back home. I went to see that final game, and I had to. My connection was at Atwater, right in front of the Forum. I remember walking by the Forum that night and just pumping my fist, kind of saying, "Yes, we beat the Bruins again." And then the draft that year was in August, and then being drafted in August 9th, I think it was, to the Bruins. It ended up pretty quick, but it's when I showed up for training camp and met all the players and my future teammates, and just hearing how hard and how that loss hurt, and the kind of like the hate that was there. You learned pretty quick, and when you played against them, and the preparation and the seriousness of everybody entering that game, you knew that it was all business, and the cord was cut. Uh, it was cut. It was cut after I got drafted, but more when I really experienced for the first time playing them.
Ray, last one for me. How great has this 100-year ceremony been for you? How proud are you of being a Bruin and being able to have been a part of all of these ceremonies? I know for me, just being a small piece and seeing you guys together and it's been special.
It really is special. Like I said, they've done an amazing job, and really, it's been so much fun catching up. You know, with guys you haven't seen. You know, some 20 years, some 15, some 10, and it's amazing. Whenever we get together, we all say the same thing. You just fall right back into that pocket, and it's just like it was yesterday that you know your teammates and you were battling together and you know, living the successes and trying to figure out the difficult times and the whys, just the fun that we've had as a group. You know, like I came in '79, and then the guards kind of changed there in 84, 85, 86. It kind of became our team. All the guys that were drafted, my year and then after me, and we had a good run and all that stuff. The fun that we had in those years, and the Wise had more fun than we did, was just so special. And then when we get to see each other again and just fall right back into that pocket, and being able to say, man, I was part of this for almost 21 years. When I came into the league, I was hoping if I played 10, 12 years, that would be an amazing career. And then you just go on and you're having success, and then you want to maintain it. You want to, you're trying to improve, and then you get to a certain point. Now it's hanging on, maintaining, and you end up playing 22 years. When it's all said and done with, you just shake your head and you say, wow, that was, I just tell people I lived the dream, and being able to do it in Boston for that amount of time is, it's a special place. That's where my kids grew up. We had our kids. That's where we still live. Even with this beautiful background, this is just to get out of the snow and the rain and the cold for a little bit. But our summers are all spent there, and my grandkids now that we have 6 of them, and my kids, um, and we're all big fans. We had the opportunity to watch all those major sports, and the run that we had for 2 decades in Boston, in New England. All parts of it is fantastic, and be part of that and to experience one more big event on the weekend coming up. I really look forward to it.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there too. And as we wrap this up, our teammate, our dear friend, the guy that was a teammate of yours too. We need to get some crap on Barry Peterson, some dirt on him, because normally he's the one giving it to us. And can we get anything from you on Petey? What an amazing guy, a phenomenal broadcaster. We know he was just an off the charts good player too. But what was he like as a teammate for you?
Amazing person. He could dish it pretty good, but he takes it pretty good. We call him the senator. The guy could talk. He could talk to a shoe. He's smooth, man. He could work a room like nobody else. That's why we called him the senator. An amazing teammate. It was so much fun to watch him and Nifty, play the way they did, and they were really special together. Barry had an amazing start to his career with coming in and doing the things that he did, and um, if it wasn't for Vancouver offering up Cam Neely and their first pick that ended up being Glenn Wesley, I was actually really surprised to see Barry leave when he did, because of the success and how a big part of our team that he was. But it's nice. We play Salem Country Club together, so I run into him quite often there, and I'm a big fan of you guys. You guys do a great job with the Bruins and how you go about it, and you have fun with it. And Barry's all about having fun and chatting it up. So no, it's the senator. He's called the senator in our eyes, in our book. So he's still. He knows when that name comes up and somebody yells it out in the room. He knows it's one of his ex-teammates.
I heard that he played I know he played on a line with Nifty, but I heard you played left wing with them one game in Quebec City. And I think you had a couple of points. You showed those guys how easy it was to play forward.
I played forward a couple of times. And the first time I played, I played the wing sometimes on the power play. But one night we're in Detroit, and I'm on the power play, and Parkey's playing the right side. I'm on the left point. The puck comes up the boards to me, and I try to rifle a pass right across the ice to Parkey, and Ogrodnik picks it off right there. And from our blue line, I'm chasing him down, and he scores. And I don't think it was my first giveaway of the night. So I go back to the bench, and Gary Doak sits me for one shift, sits me for 2 shifts, sits me for a 3rd shift now. So Cheesy looks over to him and says, "What the F are you doing?" He says, "He's sitting." He says, "F you," he's sitting. "Ray, come over here. I finished the game with friggin' Peter McNabb and Theo O'Reilly, and I get 1-1. And same kind of thing. He moved me up in Quebec with Barry and Nifty one night, and I don't know. I had a hat trick one night in Quebec City. That might have been the night, but I certainly, if it wasn't, I had a couple of points. So it was is pretty
Nothing
cool
to
because
it.
I grew up playing. You know, I was a forward one year, then the next year I'd play D, then I'd play forward one year, I'd play D the next year. It's only when I turned 13 years old that that's when I was strictly a defenseman. Um, so I kind of, you know, kind of think it helped me, obviously, you know, with the instincts, the offensive part of it and all that stuff. So,
Hey,
but
Ray, that won't
it was
fly
fun.
nowadays anymore. You got to be specialized at 9 years old, buddy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. Hey, my grandson's here. He's 12. He's on his way to Quebec Pee Wee tournament this year. So
Outstanding.
um, it's a lot of fun. Very proud now. You know, the kids, you know, Chris and Ryan are all done. Now I watch Kingston play and Chris is scouting, and then I surprised Ryan in his first Christian Academy game against Philip Sandover last week. I flew back for that to see it, so it's pretty cool to see that they're still involved in hockey, and my grandson loves it. So still a big part of the game.
That's the best. That's the best. And I had a hunch watching your grandson is going to maybe end up being your most favorite hockey experiences ever. And you've had some
Um,
unbelievable ones
I
throughout your
think you're
life.
right. I
So
think you're right.
that's great stuff. All right, Raymond, we cannot thank you enough for making time, for making us completely jealous, sitting in, I know you're hot, but sitting in nice, beautiful sunshine.
I I cooled off a little bit here, but yeah, it took
as,
a little while.
as we sit in Madrid.
To be honest, my wife's putting up the Christmas tree right now, and I had to bring in like 4 humongous boxes, and that's why I was sweating.
It's a workout. We hope the
Yeah,
golf game continues to be successful. We
yeah.
know that you're involved with that an awful lot. We look forward to seeing you in the next couple of days back in Boston again, Sunday afternoon against Montreal. Festivities start a little bit before 3:00. It'll be great to see you. As always, again, thank you for your time. We will see you at Tresca. We appreciate you supporting us in the past very much, very, very much. We look forward to doing more together as well. Thanks for taking the time as we talk Boston Bruins 100 years, captains, and Montreal memories, Ray. It's been a lot of fun.
Pleasure, boys. Thanks. Keep up the good work and good luck with everything.
Thank you. That was awesome stuff. Awesome to hear from Raymond, to see him. Can't wait to see him again, as we said, on Sunday. I mean, this guy just oozes everything, Razor, that is Boston Bruins.
He does, and I think I mentioned it in the interview, but like with this group, this generation, we all look to Ray as the leader. I got a few training camps with him, but when I was playing here, we had Joe as a captain, but Ray was still around, and I think Patrice and Brad and Zdeno all leaned on Ray a lot. He's kind of the grand poobah of this generation.
All right, well, now let's get to your dear friend, a guy who wore a letter on his sweater for many years as an assistant to Zdeno Chara, but then took over after Zdeno left. And Patrice Bergeron was a captain for your Boston Bruins for 3 seasons. One of them, the greatest regular season ever in the National Hockey League. Bergie has remained in the area as well, just like Ray has. Ray spends a little more time away from here than Patrice does, different times in their life. But I know that this guy is a special, dear friend of yours. And Razor, I'm looking forward to this interview with Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah, Bergie's the best. And had it not been for Zdeno, he might have challenged Ray for captaincy length, because even as an 18-year-old kid, he was leadership material right from day one.
All right, let's take a listen as we welcome in Patrice Bergeron. And now we get to catch up with another great former Boston Bruin, a guy who is still very much in the market. In fact, dare I say, he may, and I kid here, Patrice Bergeron, are you entering the dark side as you enter into the world of television with your buddy Andrew Rager? Just a little bit. We've had you on Unobstructed Views a couple of times so far. Are you having fun doing that? You've made 2 appearances on NESN as a quote unquote analyst.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been fun to do it with Razor and Tukes. Probably the main reason why I accepted and wanted to do it. I think it's familiar faces, easier to kind of talk with no structure to the way that the show is set up. So made things easy for me. And then I mean, you can't say you don't like something if you don't try it, right? So that's my point of view, and it's been very enjoyable so far.
Razor, what do you think? We can get him for a Vancouver 10:30 start on a Saturday night, no problem.
Yeah, that'll be the real test. That will be the true test. But the fact that that Bergie signed on and like you just said, you don't know unless you try, is what made him so great and such a good leader.
It's very fun. It's very different, and it is eventually, as I know, Bergie, you're about hard work and discipline and dedication. It's also a lot of that. That's what broadcasting is. But it's great to have you part of the Nesson family. Great to have you joining us here on Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. I want to talk to you a couple of minutes as we celebrate the Boston Bruins centennial game coming up on Sunday afternoon, TD Garden. 3:00 against the Montreal Canadiens. No more appropriate team to play than them, just like the Boston Bruins played them some years ago in Montreal for their 100th anniversary as a hockey club. So very appropriate. We're really going to go over here because I know they're celebrating captains. They're bringing them back for that. We're celebrating and talking about your role as a captain, your experience as a captain, and then some of your favorite moments against the Montreal Canadiens. So let's just start with this. You became the captain of the Boston Bruins, the 20th captain in history in the 21-22 season. You were captain for 3 years, 1 under Bruce Cassidy, 2 under Jim Montgomery, if I have my notes correct. Yes, I do there. And I just wanted to know this. You've always been a leader, etc. But what was it like your first game putting on the Bruins sweater with the C on your jersey, and did it feel different for you? Because it wasn't like you hadn't been here for a long time before then, but did it feel different?
Maybe a little bit, yes. Definitely a privilege. That's the first thing that kind of came to mind, was like, it was an honor for me to be a part of the organization, be a part of the Bruins, but also like to be named captain was a huge honor. Something that I didn't take lightly, that I was, proud of and wanted to do obviously a good job. So the first time I went on the ice with it was definitely different. I mean, obviously it was like the COVID year which was kind of like good and bad, different feeling. But that being said, it was pretty special to be able to to wear the C and try to be as good a leader as you can be.
January 14th, 2021, against the New Jersey Devils, 3-2 shootout win, and you had an assist in that game. Again, I didn't do much homework, but I did that one right there. That was the COVID year. And so the attendance, if I remember correctly, was 0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely quiet in the building.
And then with that, you're following up Zdeno Chara. But you were considered a leader for a long time, a part of that group. Was it natural? And was it, did you think that you would just change 1 or 2 little things? Like did you realize that you were changing the way it was done just a little bit from Z? With your own personality, of course.
Yeah, no, I think for me, like leadership was, I feel it was always in me. Like I kind of grew up being a captain, being an assistant on my teams, growing up in minor hockey, and I think like it was more like leading by example. I think Z, once he showed up and was named captain, the way that he commanded respect really by who he is and his stature and his size, his work ethic and whatnot. I think you learn a lot from that. And for me, I was named an assistant at the same time, so I was able to grow with them and kind of become a better leader. And along the way came Sean Thornton, Mark Recchi, like other leaders that have been around that had a lot of experience, that I've tried to take something out of each and every one of them and make that my own kind of leadership. I think it's important not to try to be someone else. You want to be yourself. You want everything to grow organically, and that's gonna transpire to your teammates. If you're trying to be someone you're not, it's just not gonna work out. And I think that's what I was trying to do from the get-go. Was Z is obviously I had some big shoes to fill, and no pun intended, but like it's obviously like a guy that as I said, commanded respect. And for myself, it was really about connecting with the guys and making sure getting to know them on a personal level, making them understand how they fitted on the team, whether they were in the lineup or not always in, in and out. To me, leadership was always about connecting and finding ways to bring those guys into the fight and make them feel comfortable and want to give their all for the team.
Earlier, you just mentioned some names. I'll call them secondary leaders, part of the leadership group, right? And Razor and I actually have talked about this year a lot, Razor, right? About how the team has changed a bit and there's some different guys. This team has been so extremely successful, not just with their captains, but with their depth leaders, the Boston Bruins. So can you explain the role and the importance of those guys, even if they're not wearing a letter on their sweater, and how they made your job not so much easier, but they made your job better? You could do what you wanted to do more. Because I think people sometimes take what I would call the mid-tier leaders for granted.
Yes, 100%. Sometimes they fall into like the no man's land where no one really talks about them, and they're really so important. And we call them the glue guys. The guys that are make everything stick and become one, right? So like for me, like to be able to touch the whole room and to be able to have access and connect with the whole room, you need those guys to be on board with you, and I think that's the most important part. And whether it was Torrey Krug at some point, Chris Wagner, I had a lot of guys that I had to lean on and talk to and make them realize, listen, you don't have a letter on your jersey, but you're a big part of this team, and I need you to kind of be on board with and buy into what we're trying to sell, because people look up to you, especially young guys. They look up to you and they want to do like you do. So if you're the one that complains behind our backs, then it's just not going to work out. So those guys were always on board, helping me, kind of relay the message and that what we're trying to accomplish as a team or as a leadership group. And yeah, that's extremely important. And sometimes people don't talk about them enough. But obviously inside the locker room, how much they mean to you and to the team. And I can't say enough about those guys and how much they've helped me become a better leader.
Bourque, I think a lot of times it gets overlooked, and people that just have never been in a dressing room or certainly an NHL locker room understand how much communication the captain does with coaches and travel and days off, and how the guys will come to you, hey, Bourque, can you find a way to change travel or find a way to get us here? And can you just tell us a little bit about that part of it, that side of it, and what your relationship is as captain with the coaching staff?
Yeah, no, it's you're definitely that bridge, in between the coaching staff, management, and the players, and you want to represent your players to the best that you can, and make sure you're really their voice. So if you don't stand up for them, or if you don't, go and talk and say, hey, listen, I don't think this makes sense, or we were thinking about this, and that's where the glue guys kind of come into play, where sometimes you go about your business, you obviously you have a lot on your shoulders, which is fine as a captain, but like you also want to work on your game, and you're working about practice and warming up and working out. So then those guys will come to you, hey, I saw the schedule like in 2 days, we're traveling, we get in at 3 a.m. and it seems like there's a 10 a.m. practice the next day, like can we change that? Like things like that they make you aware of, that then you can go talk to them and be like, hey, what do you guys think about this? Like, I think we should change that. So like that it's constant communicating, constant like having like an open conversation with your team, making sure that everyone's on board, and like, and then go talk to the management, go talk to the coaches. There's a lot of that goes into it, but it's a lot of fun. If it's done the right way. So usually, like, I was really lucky enough to have some coaches that were really open-minded with that, and always welcomed the comments from the players and the opinions, and making sure we're all on the same page, and we're all doing this to be better as a team, really. When you look at at the end of the day, that's the only reason why we're having those conversations, because we want to be better.
So how much more would you say, going from an assistant captain to the big guy to the captain, that you would think about things more when you came home, when you got home after a day of, the days are tough as it is sometimes. I mean, yeah, some days easier than others, no practice, whatever. But could you ever turn off things as the Boston Bruins captain, as that guy, when you got home?
It was hard. It was hard to turn it off completely. I don't think you ever do that. As a matter of fact, even as an assistant captain, when I was with Z, Z was always so open with like the way that he was doing it, that he was always kind of like making me aware, especially by the end of it, that we were always kind of like having conversations, making phone calls to each other, just to make sure we were not missing anything. And I was doing the same thing with my assistants when I, was inherited of the C after that. So like I think it's constant. You don't want to miss anything. You don't want to, leave any stone unturned, and it's always on your mind. For myself, anyways. I remember like thinking about at practice. I saw a few guys that seemed down, and that kind of weighed on my mind. I would have to text them, reach out to them, make sure they're fine. Looking at schedule, making sure like what's coming up, whether it's milestones from players or training staffs, or even like travel. If there was any sort of team dinners we want to set up, all the way to what's the state of the team? Are we like having a good stretch, or do we need a meeting and talk as a leadership core? And all that stuff is like going through your mind. And obviously when you get home, you're trying to be 100% there with your family and your kids, but it's definitely weighing on your shoulders a bit.
No, it's great insight. I think people underestimate just how much gets put into by captains and especially original six Bruins ones. The other constant for about 110 years is Canadiens Bruins rivalry. And you grew up in Quebec. I know not Montreal, but you knew what that was growing up.
Yeah.
What's your first thought of Canadian Bruins rivalry?
I mean, I remember like even like growing up, like as all the battles and the the hatred, I guess, if I can say that, between the teams, which just lost an earbud. Which, by the way, was the same thing for me as a Nordiques fan. With a lot of battles between the Nordiques and the Canadians. So it was only fitting for me to go to stay on the on that side of the fence and go with the Bruins. But yeah, lots of great memories. I mean, obviously, I do remember the playoff series. I think it was 2 years before I came in. Between that Kyle McLaren, the hit on Zednik, and everything that unfolded after that big playoff series, and if you go further down, it's remember some of the brawls in the 70s and whatnot. So yeah, it's a special rivalry, and for me to be a part of it was definitely something.
It's a very general question, so I'll try and get a little more specific, because you had 5 playoff series as a player against Montreal. I think there's one in particular you probably remember the most in 11 that led there, but that had so many little intricacies. That story, that series itself, Bergie. I mean, that series was I'd call that high drama, right? That's a days of our lives type of thing right there. Was there something from that series in 2011 down 0-2, you come back, that really makes you laugh the most, still makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up? Anything that stands out the most for you, Patrice?
From that series, probably going to Lake Placid, because we knew it was going to be chaos in Montreal if we stayed there. I mean, me and Razor, we do remember, even in our first year, we're getting phone calls at like 3 a.m. from like, fans just trying to wake us up, and radio stations at like 5 a.m.
That was a series in 2004 that you guys were up 2-0 as well, correct?
Yeah. We were up 3-1, but we'll
and 3-1. Sorry yes.
Yeah. So every time you go into Montreal, it's going to be like that. Like fans are into it. There's a big rivalry, and they want to do everything they can to help their team. So it's so to go to Lake Placid and kind of like get away from like chaos, as I said, and kind of regroup as a team. You're down 2-0. You got to do something here, right? And you need those games in Montreal. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough hill to climb. So to go away and as it, that's kind of what I remember the most is that we kind of like the team spirit was fine. The guys were like still like in a good mood. We're all like, you know what, like this is a great challenge. It's a great adversity, and it's going to make us stronger down the road for the long run. And I just like the way that we reacted from that, obviously. And we all know now the ending. But that being said, in the moment, it was pretty special to be a part of that.
To go all the way back, I did a little research as well. My memory isn't nearly as good as it used to be, but two goals that I want to talk about or allow you to talk about. One, do you remember your first goal in Montreal? You scored the game winner October 28th. We won 2-0. Cat had the shutout in Montreal. I remember Cat having the shutout. I don't remember you scoring. And then game 2 in the Garden, your second playoff game of all time against Montreal. Do you remember the first goal in the regular season? Then I know you remember your first OT goal.
Yeah, no, I don't remember that first goal. It's funny because I do remember you probably don't remember that, but like in preseason, we played the first game against Montreal. And back then I was supposed to like go back to juniors that they're like, okay, you had a good camp. We're going to give you that game in Montreal. And then you're going to go back to juniors from there. Cause I'm in Quebec. Obviously I'm just grab a bus and I'll go to my junior team. And I scored in overtime that game. And then they're like, are you coming back with us? So I remember that. I don't remember like that first goal against Montreal. And then I do remember the overtime goal because that was pretty special to win it in overtime. And I just remember all the guys, celebrating and all that. So that was pretty cool. Good memories.
How much harder has that shot in overtime gotten over the years?
Oh my God. What a muffin.
It was a muffin. It was a muffin.
I think that's what surprised Theodore.
Yeah, it was.
God. Yeah. But hey, we'll take him,
Yeah.
It was 105 miles per hour, I think.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you.
I know you said, and it's well documented, being from the Quebec City area, that was your passion, your team as a youngster, but still being a French Canadian, being the captain of the Boston Bruins. By the way, it wasn't unprecedented when you did it because there was a certain gentleman who did it for 15 seasons earlier in Raymond Bourque, but it's still different. And were you conscious of that? Did that, did that not bother you? Did you think about that? But also, how much did you use Raymond as kind of a sounding board once you got named as the big captain, as the big C, and being French Canadian as well? The similarities are obvious.
Yeah, I've always, had a lot of respect for Ray and everything he's accomplished, and the way that he is as a person too. So approachable and always wants to help. So even before then, I was always kind of like talking to Ray and having conversations with him about different things, and he's so knowledgeable that it's always been very helpful for me to have him and to kind of lean on him once in a while. But yeah, I mean, I never really thought about it that way. To me, like Ray is he's the man. He's a legend, and to be named captain as a French Canadian, for me, like at this point, I bleed black and gold. You know what I mean? Like it was an honor for me to represent that team, and I still have, I feel like this is my team. I was drafted by them. I've been loyal to them. They've been loyal to me. So it means a lot. And definitely never in my wildest dream I've ever thought, I never thought I'd be the captain of the Bruins. So let alone, I thought I would play in the NHL was always, a dream, but never know if you're going to accomplish it. To have a chance to make it and then eventually be named captain of the original 6 is mind-blowing, to be honest.
Who is your most disliked Canadian player over your career?
Oh my God.
And I know you're a nice guy, so it's not like a personal thing. It's someone that you didn't want to play against. I'll get you off the hook there. I know there's someone you hate. I know there is. I don't know who it is, but I know there is, but I won't put you there. Who did you dislike the most as a Canadian player in the 11 series or any of the other, who's your toughest Canadian opponent?
I I mean, 11 series, Price was probably the guy that, was the hardest. It's like one of those goalies you're like, okay, this is going to be a tough one. Like, just to get a few out from him is going to be, who else? I don't know if there's one guy. I never really had guys that I really hated to play against. I know that a guy like Plekanec was hard to play against, really hard. Like, he was just good on draws. He was in your face. There's a bit of a trying to get under your skin a little bit, like a little annoying to play against.
Did you not like the turtleneck either?
Yeah, I mean, no one was a big fan of it. That's true, but I mean, that's the style he was rocking. I respect it, but maybe not the one I would have used. But then, he was playing hard. It was good. He was tough to play against. He was good on draws. We had some good battles. Maybe Plekanec was probably the guy that you knew you had your hands full because he was just annoying to play against, but also he was a good player, and I respected his game. Yeah.
So as we wrap this up with you, and again, so many, we could again talk. We had you on last season. It was phenomenal. Great reviews from everybody listening. We could go on and on about this, but if you're telling, and you alluded to this much earlier, but if there's a young player out there and they came to you and you're sitting down with former captain of the Bruins, Patrice Bergeron, what would you tell that young player who's like, well, maybe a guy like Brad Marchand, in fact? What kind of conversations did you have with him before or after he was named captain? And what would you suggest?
Yeah, to me, it was always to, I had the conversation with Marshy, or I'll have it with anyone else. I think you got to be yourself, right? The reason that you're in that position to be named captain is because you have all the intangibles, obviously the work ethic, and you lead by example, and the way that you are, guys respect you, like that, just the way that you play or the way that you present yourself in the locker room and whatnot. So I think don't change that, be yourself, and you're going to learn as it goes. I think organically you're going to become a better leader and a better person and a better teammate for it. But then don't be afraid to lean on people to help you become a better leader quicker. I think it's making sure you talk to your guys, you have that core, you got to set that up right away and make sure who are my guys that I lean on, that leadership group, but then who are the guys that are the glue guys on my team and that I can make sure they buy into, and that's going to bleed through the rest of the lineup. So to me, it's don't try to do everything yourself, but be yourself and make sure you're rely on your guys to have the most success. That's just how you can be a good leader is if you don't control everything. You know what I mean? You don't try to be a control freak and trust guys, make them feel comfortable, make them understand that you mean a lot to you, and that I think that's how you're going to grow as a team, and that's how you're going to become a good leader.
Well, truth serum time, and then we're going to wrap it up. If I'd asked you 15 years ago, give or take, when you met Brad Marchand, and we're having fun here, did you think he would be captain of the Boston Bruins one day?
Maybe not at first. Maybe not the first year, but then I'll be honest, I have been really impressed of the way that he's grown over the years, whether it's on the ice, off the ice, family life, whatever that is. It's been really impressive to see him become the man that he is now and the leader that he is now, and I'm so proud of him.
Well, he learned from you, from Big Z, and many others as well. So he had some good people teaching him. Patrice, you look fantastic. If you're watching us here on YouTube, folks, then you would agree with us. And again, you've seen him on Nesson. Did anybody hit you up with makeup? Did Razor give you any makeup or no?
No.
You don't need any. You got the hair. Both you guys got the hair. I don't have shit for hair. I have nothing. I mean, that's why I needed on the big forehead. But you're making your way into the next stage of your hockey life, and that's great. We appreciate taking time here. I know you're going to be part with the Bruins around them on the weekend. It's going to be phenomenal, a lot of fun. One more centennial celebration, and then it's going to be time to look at the next 100 years. Look forward to the next 100 years of the Boston Bruins after that. I know that it means an awful lot to you, and rightfully so. So one of the great Boston Bruins players of all time, one of their captains. There haven't been that many, Patrice, so that is a special, special task. So we appreciate you taking some time here on Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor and talking the Bruins, talking a little Montreal, and can't wait to see you around the rink soon.
Thank you so much. Always an honor, guys. Thank you.
And our last captain, as we do this special Captain's Brew on Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor, is the current one, Brad Marchand, the player that perhaps least likely to be ever named captain of the Bruins, at least in the eyes of perhaps the public and perhaps even some of his teammates too, when things started for Brad Marchand. But he has absolutely blossomed into an amazing leader. I know how prideful he is of this, and rightfully so. And boy, Razor, this is a guy with a ton of personality. This is a guy you always know where you stand with Brad Marchand.
The best. Yeah. There's as good of a character as there is in the National Hockey League nowadays. And what a transformation. And I think that is also part of being a Bruins captain and adapting and getting on board. And no one's done that maybe ever in the Bruins jersey like Brad Marchand.
This is going to be a fun one too, folks, as we welcome in your current captain, Brad Marchand. Well, we go from Patrice to Brad as we welcome in Brad Marchand, your current captain of the Boston Bruins. It is a pleasure to have you on, and that we have yet to have you on as a guest of Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. So it took a centennial game and the captains being, honored to get you on, buddy. But it's great to have you. We're really excited for the next 20, 25 minutes to talk with you. Let's just start with this, bud. This has been an interesting year already. As we sit and record this, This is November 25th. I'm sure it's been extra special, so to speak, extra different for you as captain. How are you doing personally? And where are you at with where the team is at right now after the coaching change?
Yeah, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. I don't typically do podcasts, but I would never pass up an opportunity to spend some time with you two.
We appreciate
it. Two of my favorite people. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind to start the season. I don't think any of us in here expected to be kind of sitting where we do right now, and for the way it's played out. There was very high expectations from kind of all the way around. I think the organization, the room, and I think we're just really excited to put together a really good team, and thought that we would have performed better than what we have. I think a lot of where we've been and how things are playing out is performance based. So what I mean by that is I don't think we've reached, everyone's really played to their potential and played to the way that they know they can. You look at where our power play and our penalty kill sit. We've been one of the best penalty kill teams in the league for the last 15 years. And it just seems like up until the last few games, we haven't been able to keep a puck out of our net. And then same thing with the power play. So, you get those things back on track, it drastically changes the outcome of multiple of those games. So we know that there's a path forward that is with us having continued success, but it's going to take a lot of time and effort, and something we're excited about. So, we're not hanging our heads. We're not, frustrated. We're just going to continue to work and get better.
Brad, there's, again, a little chaos from the outside this season, but there's always chaos in an NHL room. Every year is drama filled, almost on a daily basis, even when you're winning 65 games a year.
Yeah.
And the captain's always in the middle of that, one way or the other as well. So just talk us about last year, this year, being the person that is involved and always in the mix, and having to put small fires out or build guys up in different ways, and then also dealing with the coaches from that point of view as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think because of the way Bergie and Z did things, I got a really good, and especially with how close Bergie and I were, I think Berge was Z's right-hand man, and he was involved in everything. And then when Berge became captain, I really get to see, how he did everything, how involved he was. He was very, very good at kind of creating a group and running a lot of things by us and involving guys in decisions and getting ideas. And again, because we're so close, I got I think a much better idea of what a captain did and how he was supposed to do things, and not how. But Berge also took it to a whole other level. That Berge or Z did it one way and led created an incredible environment and unbelievably competitive environment that and that's how he led every day, was through his work ethic and determination and his intensity, and Berge led differently. So it was great that I get to watch both of those guys. So I think last year there was a lot of talk about us kind of going in, and the expectations were that we were gonna kind of be like we were this year. We weren't supposed to have a lot of success and not be great out of the gate. So I think it made the transition a little bit easier. When you're winning and you are doing well as a team. The moods are high around the room and everyone's happy a lot of the times where when things aren't going well. The pressure's higher and there's a lot of drama and the outside media and all that. It can take a toll on you mentally. With guys' moods and everything. There's a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes and meetings, and you can tell that the mood around the room is not quite the same. So being a year into it, I'm happier that we're going through it this year than last year, because it would have been a big hurdle to try to figure out as a first-year captain. But what I love about our group is we have so many guys that step up at different times and lead throughout games and in the room and in practice. So, we still have a great group in that sense. And, especially, some of the young guys that want to get better and learn and, are continuing to try to find their voice. So it's good.
Brad, we're asking this of all three of you that are coming on this special captain's special brew episode. First time you put on your Bruins sweater with the C on it before your first, I'll go to the regular season game. Maybe in preseason it was special, but I know your first regular season game was against Chicago. You had an assist. By the way, your friend Patrice had the same exact line, had one assist in his first game as the captain as well. But do you remember that first time you put on the Bruins sweater and noticing the C and what was going through your head at that time, the feelings?
Yeah, I do. The first time I put it on, it felt it still feels surreal. To be a captain of an NHL. I grew up obviously being a huge fan of the game, and some of my favorite players are captains. And, when you look at captains of teams, like, they've always been the top players in the league and guys that have elevated to such a high leadership. It's like they're the ultimate leaders, and especially the guys that I've watched come through here in the history of this organization. You almost don't feel like you're good enough to wear it. I think that was kind of where my head went. Like, why is this on my jersey? This is insane. It's something I have a tremendous amount of pride in and so extremely grateful for, and also very thankful. There's so many people that took the time and effort that they didn't have to. I don't think people necessarily understand, when, the coaches and the people that have come in this organization and that are still here, they're constantly pushing you and trying to make you better. And that's a choice that they're making. And they're taking time and effort of their lives that they don't need to. And they didn't need to help me, get to this point. And there's a lot of times throughout my career, people could have given up on me and decided to help me change instead of pushed me along to a different organization and stuff. And, when you think about all that, it's special. And, but yeah, I remember putting it on being like, this, it looks weird, like it should be on someone else's jersey. And, yeah, so it's a surreal moment.
The C in hockey sweaters is still the most special. I know other sports have taken it over Razor or added it on, right? You see it in football now, and they got like 17 guys wearing C's, right? And it's so the C in the hockey sweater is the most beautiful thing. They just are. I mean, there's something unique because we've always had it that way. That's and it's always been usually been one, but that's what makes it so unique, so special. And I got to imagine the pride, and I'm going to guess a little extra nervousness that first time you put it on too.
Yeah, there's a ton. I think the biggest thing, I also never really thought about it. I do remember when I was like 24, 25, I started making more of a conscious effort. Like I wanted to be like Bergie. Claude pulled me in and wanted me to try to play and learn from Bergie. And I made a decision, like conscious decision. I wanted to try to be a good leader. Like eventually I wanted to get an A on my jersey down the road. I had a ton of respect for the guys around that had them on, and I wanted to be like them. But I always thought that Bergie would play as long as I did. Like I expected us to kind of retire together. So I never even thought that there'd be another captain in my time here. I thought that I'd retire as right-hand man and he'd go out as the captain. So, that was part of it too, is that I was really nervous because I was like, I never really thought that I'd have to, be in this position. But very nervous because there's such big shoes to fill. And there's a lot of guys, obviously all the hockey guys talk or about the different teams, and there's ways guys do things. But the guys that I learned from and the guys that I saw did it at the highest level and were the best two of the best leaders, not to ever just play on our team, but two of the best leaders to ever play in the game of hockey were our last two captains. So I'm like, what? How do you fill these shoes? So the stress and the pressure and wanting to be good enough, not for myself, but for the group, this team deserves a really good captain. And, so all of that kind of goes through your mind and immediately, and then you got to try to live up to it.
And just to keep going from how special the C is in hockey, but I was like, I played on 2 original 6 teams. I played on 3 non-original 6. There's a difference in that as well. The C on the original 6. And you talk about 2 Hall of Fame. You had 4 of the last 5 captains prior to you are Hall of Famers. You got Jumbo, you got Ray, you got Z and Patrice. And you also kind of mentioned it, but the response you get from guys like Terry O'Reilly and Nifty, that all the way back, that now look at you as the leader of their organization. And I know that, like, being around those guys, they follow and talk, and I know they talk to you and reach out to you at different times. So just kind of go that way for us a little bit in how cool that is.
It's incredible. My family was a big hockey family, and all the names that of the guys that I continue to see around the organization are all people that we grew up watching, and my dad was a big fan of, and grandfathers are fans of, and they do. I think that's one thing about the original 6 teams, that there's such a tremendous amount of pride when you play there, that you will always be a part of the organization and love it, and it becomes a home and a brotherhood. Guys are always around the rink, and obviously everyone is in touch, and the amount of texts and phone calls I get from guys, trying to help out or give congratulations, or just wanting to lend a hand or be a voice or a shoulder, an ear, in trying times and good times. So it is very special and a huge honor. I mean, these guys are all legends that have been around, and just you go around the memorabilia around the room, and when these guys continue to show up and support the group and individuals, it just shows you how much it means and why the expectations are what they are every year to be good, and why the culture's so good, and why we continue to be stressed through the roof, even in a 65-win season, one of the best seasons, I think it was the best season ever in hockey. And there's a lot of days during that year where, we weren't having fun, and the pressure still felt tremendously high. And, we didn't like the way that we were playing, but we were still winning. And, you think that when you're having a season like that, it's everything's going to be good and be great, but it's not, because those expectations are there, and they're there because of the history of the group and the guys that have come before, and they built something so special that, mediocrity is just not accepted. So it's very, very special. You could go on forever about it, but it's very special to be part of.
How different do you know or recognize that the officials treat you now? And that may have something to do with you maturing as well over the years. But is there also, with the C on your sweater, have you noticed a different relationship?
I think that's the biggest thing is, more my respect level towards them. The refs have all good intentions, and they come into games, with the utmost respect to players, and they treat everyone great. The only time I've had issues with refs are when I'm a problem, and I'm disrespectful, and I've tried to make a much better effort the last couple of years of being more respectful. And I'm emotional. I'm not perfect. I obviously I get heated at times and yell and stuff like that, but I try to always apologize and heat of the moment type thing. But we also have to deal with each other a lot more too. So, that's part of it. And I think there's that mutual respect that, we're both out there trying to do a job and do the best we can. Neither of us are batting 1,000 out there. We both make mistakes, and, there's a respect level that goes along with that. So yeah, I've been better, so they've been better with me.
Another thing that's heated is Canadiens Bruins rivalry and the Centennial game. 100 years. It's been a 100-year rivalry of those two going at it. What's your first thought when we say Montreal Canadiens?
I mean, there's so many things that go through my head. The very first one is I remember the first time I played in Montreal, and I was like, wow, this is another level type energy of hatred, and like I just couldn't believe, how angry everyone was at us, and it was pretty incredible. That kind of set the stage, and at that time, both of us were powerhouses, and cup contenders, and every game was a war. And there's a couple of great games that first year that I played, that first couple of years that I'll never forget, where there was one in Boston where I think we beat them like 6-1 or something like that. And everyone was brawling all game. It was a bloodbath. It was great. But that's where, and then where I think rivalries are created, especially nowadays, are playoffs. And we played them multiple times in a short window there, where the hatred just continued to brew. And that's been going on for 100 years now. It dates back long before I got in the league. But when you get into it and you put the uniform on, it's incredible how you just adapt. Like, you just put that on and hate them. You don't have a choice. And it is the funnest rivalry, probably the most notorious rivalry in sports. And it's a fun one to be part of, for sure.
Patrice talked about that similarly too. He talked about the trip to Lake Placid, which we've heard about and how important that was and how he remembers that the most. But that series is, I also said to him, Brad, it was very dramatic. I mean, it was drama filled with, you had fights and fingers being raised, and you had the trip and you're down and everything.
That was just a bad glove, right?
That was just right. Yeah. I was going to say to you, how much that was fun. That whole thing was. Let's talk about quickly about the bad finger. Like, how much were you guys laughing your asses off in the locker room? After that, when that happened,
I think you're right, dude. You couldn't come up with something better than that. I would have fined you for the finger and the bad story.
And yeah, so that's great. But when you beat them in that series, you come back. Hindsight being 2020. At that point, did you feel something special, or was it just, all right, that was business, we took care of one?
Well, the big message is we knew Montreal was going to be a war to start. The first round, it gets talked about. The first round is the toughest round. Like, if you get through the first round, like, there's a lot of pressure. The top teams are supposed to beat the bottom teams, and the bottom teams don't have any pressure at all. So they go in as the underdog, and that's why you see teams get caught all the time. So we knew it was going to be a battle, but we did not expect to go down 2-0 at all. And you could see, like, wow, what is happening right now after that second game. And once we got that first one, then we realized, okay, we're right back in it. And then we kind of got rolling. And after we got through Montreal, that's where, like, okay, like, that was a tough one, but, like, everybody felt that we could come back through adversity. Our confidence was high. We had the belief at that point. Then at the same time, guys were at the top of the game, and between all those things, I mean, it's a dangerous recipe to play against. But that series, if we don't go through that to start the playoffs, I don't know if we accomplish what we do, because we believe, especially in the finals, that's something we continue to go back to, is like, we did it against Montreal. They were a hell of a team. If we can do it against them, we can do it here as well. So, we kind of built that belief and learned through that adversity that, we just went through it a month ago. We can do this again. So, when you look at these different things, you can see how you build a team and a foundation by what you go through in a season.
Who's the Canadian player that you've disliked the most?
Oh, I love this question. I love it.
This one might be easier for you than Patrice to answer.
Yeah, I don't mind. He's just too good of a guy.
Yeah, I gave him I know you're not going to tell me who you don't like. Just give me, like, who you didn't like to play against.
Yeah, so. I hated from day one Thomas Plekanec.
That's what he said.
Yeah, that turtleneck just rubbed me the wrong way, and I was not a fan of him. And it made it worse because he's a really good player.
Yeah, he is.
And he was a good two-way guy, and we played against him a lot. And I just getting agitated just thinking about it.
Perfect.
How tough was Carey Price to play against in his prime?
He was all right. So one of my first games in Montreal, I had a penalty shot, and I went down and I tried to shoot low blocker, and he did not move, and I didn't move, and I hit him directly in the middle of the pad, and he just started laughing at me. I did not score a goal in Montreal, I think, for 10 years. And I was in a blender playing against Carey Price. He was so good. Like, he made the game look like he did not try. He was just so good positionally, so big. Just had like such a great temper about him for a goalie, where he just seems so poised and like, he would just allow you to make the first move, and then he'd get you every time. I hated playing him. But he had my number there in Montreal. I scored a couple on him in Boston, but never in Montreal.
Outside the 11 series, is there anything else that stands out about Montreal?
Yeah, it just seems like things happen against Marchand. I mean, like you look at Z, the whole city was trying to get him arrested. You know what I mean? We had that game. We had a couple of games against them. You know, Subban blew me up in Montreal, and that was the big one. And guys started going after. I think that was my first year, anyways. But there was a lot that happened, especially early on. You know, when teams start going through a rebuild, then you know, like I said, a lot of the rivalries are created and continue to build in playoff time. And during my first part of my career, we had a lot of games because they were a huge cup contender. We were as well. You know, and then we played them. I think it was in was it 14? They beat us.
Yep.
So like it just continued to go back and forth, and like I said, we had that one game in Boston where guys were brawling all the time, and so it was more just that kind of, it was like a 7-year window to start my career. Like every game, like you knew you had to be dialed, and we'd go into Montreal, and Claude used to coach there, and you know he's French, and like he hated them too, so he's always trying to get us riled up, and so it was always a lot of fun to play them.
And speaking of another French Canadian that I think we know disliked the Montreal Canadiens thoroughly, Ray Bourque, who was the longest tenured captain of the Boston Bruins. What is it meant to be, you know, have him in the city still, to be around, and what have you learned from the great Ray Bourque?
He's the best. One of the first, when I was 19, I was at a charity dinner with him, Phil Esposito, Pete Rose, and Hurricane Carter, the boxer. And yeah, it was the coolest night.
How'd you end up at that table at 19?
I don't know. I had dirt on the right people.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I just came back from World Juniors and we won, so I kind of, it was like threw me a bone.
Yeah.
But Ray came up to me, and it was the first time I had met him. Obviously, I was drafted at the time to Boston, and he was like, gave me great advice. He's like, listen, you need to take in and like make sure you're humble and you truly appreciate like every fan, everybody you meet. He's like, because it goes by quick, and you know when you're done, you know people don't care anymore. You know, you're just another guy that had played, and you know, they like the young players. This is like, make sure you take it all in and really appreciate it. And I think that has stuck with me forever. One, just the fact that like he didn't have to say that to me. He didn't need to give me the time of day at all. You know, he's one of the best players to ever play the game of hockey. And there was way more important people there than me for him to be talking to me. But the fact that he came over and you know, he said that, I continue to pass that down to the guys that come on today, because it's true, and it makes you appreciate. And I never forget that he said that. And when I meet kids, I always go back to how I felt when I met him, and when I was younger, and I met even some junior players that I had looked up to in my area, and how special it is to be in our position, and you know, to be able to enjoy it and give back and make kids' days and stuff like that. But then, you know, fast forward to when I'm around here and I get to see him and talk to him, and you know, he reaches out to help me out with all kinds of different things, and see him around, and I just have so much respect for who he is as a person. Obviously, what he's done for a game speaks for itself, but you never hear anyone who has something bad to say about Ray, and he has the biggest heart. He's always trying to help guys out. He's always there trying to make them better, reaching out to give advice. You know, and you know, you see why he was so successful. You know, when you talk to him about the game, his determination and you know, his mindset towards the game, and it's incredible. So yeah, I have a ton of respect for him and his family. When I first came to Boston, I met all his family, right away and got friendly with them. And so, yeah, I have a ton of respect for Ray and his whole family.
That's awesome stuff. And as we do wrap up this part of the interview with you here, so what do you think it's hard to project, to guess, but to know that you're going to be the captain when the Bruins celebrate their 100th anniversary against their arch rival, the team that you hate, that you love to hate, that you're going to be out there, and other captains will be around, former captains too. Is it, what do you say in a couple of sentences? What does that mean to you to know that you're going to be representing the Spoke Bee in that special game?
It's a historical night, right? To play in that game, to be part of it, to have a C on the jersey, that is, it's a dream come true. I mean, there's very few things I think you look back on your career and truly are your favorite moments, and that'll be one of them. To have, the historical players in the building and the legacy players that have come through, to honor them and to honor what they've built and what this team has built in the city. You can't wear it with that jersey with anything but pride that night. And it is something spectacular to be part of, and very proud and very grateful for the opportunity.
Well, I look forward, and I'll speak for Razor, we look forward to seeing you out there wearing that beautiful sweater with that very cool C. Again, I can't emphasize enough. It's cool. And I know maybe some guys don't want to admit it here and there, but it is cool to see that letter on your sweater at any level. And you've told me, I remember asking you point blank the first time I saw you after your named captain, you're like, I haven't been captain before. Yeah. I hadn't been captain. So to have this be your first time ever as a captain is pretty freaking awesome, man.
It is. Yeah.
And I'm sure it means just an absolute ton to you. We really appreciate, bud, you sitting down with us. We know it's been a busy time. There's been a lot going on. As we said when we started this interview with you, it's been a bit of a different start to the season, and the captain has even more responsibility. You said you're happy to come on. Maybe we can even get you to wear one of these snazzy Morning Brew Jaffe and Razor hats. It's not a Marchand Miller hat, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I would have loved if they would have brought one over to me.
Well, these are limited edition special, so we're going to get you one. Yes, okay. we will. We are going to get you one, all yours. And we'll be more than happy to give that to you. We really, all kidding aside, we really appreciate taking time. We know your days are very busy with the extra responsibility. And it's great to finally sit down and talk to you like this. The fans are absolutely going to love listening to this, Brad.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me. Grateful to be part of it. And we'll have to do it again sometime.
All right. That's Captain Brad Marchand, your Boston Bruins. Well, here's an understatement. That was fun. That was a ton of fun putting all of this together. Huge thanks to our guy, RC, for helping take what we kind of chopped up, and he's going to glue it all together. This is like the ultimate super glue here. So, RC, thank you for making this possible. Putting together Ray Bourque, Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand. I learned a lot. I laughed a lot. So did you. This is just great stuff. A special group are those guys inside. You said it great earlier. A special fraternity, a small one inside the bigger one. I absolutely love that. And you can see it, you can feel it. And this is why the Boston Bruins have been, Razor, so special for so many years. These kind of guys.
Yeah, it is. And what an honor for all of them to get together for this 100th year weekend. It's been an amazing year and a lot to celebrate, and no more so than these captains. It's going to be pretty cool to have them all on the ice together.
Folks, thanks for listening to this one. It was a meaty one, a long one, but again, we thought it was worthy of. You only get to 100 years one time. We appreciate you listening to this Captain's Brew, this special Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor, Captain's Edition. And remember, as always, keep enjoying that coffee.